Today we're going to be covering the complete behind-the-scenes and in-universe history of an oil-drinking, fire-breathing, aquatic Ultraman kaiju whose body is composed of two 164-foot-tall walking mutated starfish and who has the head of a bat. Woo, how's that for an opening that grabs your attention? Hello students, and welcome back to the classroom for another monster history class. It's finally time to take a look at the kaiju thousands of you voted for in a recent community post I put out. Namely, Pestar, one of the most memorable looking creatures in the entire 1966 Ultraman series. But that show wasn't the only time the creature showed up. Despite making very few major appearances, Pestar actually shows his bat-like face a lot more than you may realize. But we'll get to that. For now, let's begin the video by jumping back in time, not to the planning stages of the original Ultraman, but a few months further back than that, during the time when the very first Ultra series, Ultra Q, was still being produced. Now, I'm sure there are some of you out there who have seen every episode of the Twilight Zone-like show Ultra Q, and are positive that not once did Pestar ever appear in any of the show's 28 episodes. And you would be correct, but this is nonetheless where his story starts. Pestar's debut episode in Ultraman is Oil S.O.S, which a book claims was actually the name of an episode that was cancelled for Ultra Q, before eventually being modified into an Ultraman one. Written by Shozo Yuhara, the early version of this episode was to feature a sludge monster that grew gigantic by eating oil, as well as an oil-eating stingray called Clapton, who may actually have been the same monster. From the text I studied from different sources, I couldn't determine for sure whether this script had two monsters or one. If you know, be sure to leave a comment. Anyway, an oil refinery had already been selected as the location where filming of Ultra Q's Oil S.O.S would begin, and the company that owned the refinery initially gave Tsuburaya Productions permission to shoot there. But then for some reason the company backed out, and as a result, Yuhara ended up needing to discard his oil-centered script and quickly write another screenplay that became Episode 21, which featured another stingray monster called Boss Tang, since a miniature to make Clapton move had already been made. So, Boss Tang is actually kind of Pestar's distant relative. But as you can deduce, the story doesn't end there. For the following show's 13th episode, it appears Tetsuo Kinjo decided to recycle some of the ideas from Yuhara's script, including the name, and create a new screenplay with them. And thus, Pestar's story was written. I sort of wonder if it's because Oil S.O.S was originally going to be in a show without a giant superhero that Pestar's battle with Ultraman was so lame. Could be a possible explanation. Apparently, in the original drafts, the SSSP's jet VTOL was supposed to blow Pestar to pieces, evidently leaving Ultraman with nothing to do aside from putting out fires. So at least in the finished version we get something, even if it is, as you'll soon see, one of the most disappointing fights in the Ultraman series' history. Eiji Tsuburaya's son, Hajime, was the special effects director for the episode, and one source says that it was his idea to have Pestar's costume be piloted by two people, which had previously only been done once in the previous Ultraman episode, with Dodongo. Toll Narita drew this concept art for the monster, and the suit was constructed based on his design, and in my opinion it looks nearly exactly like the picture. The bat head in the middle is said to have been operated just like a Muppet.
Kermit the Frog?
The two lucky people who got to wear the costume were Teruo Aragaki and Yukihiro Seno. And actually, they weren't that lucky at all, because playing Pestar was apparently so grueling that after filming was complete, they are reported to have said, "It's a wonder we're safe now." And when you think about it, they really did have to go through some rough stuff, performing both in several water scenes and in scenes in which they were surrounded by fire, all while wearing a big suit and attached to each other. Sounds like torture. Creating monster roars, on the other hand, could be a bit more fun. A source says that Pestar's cries, which sound like this, are reversed and modified Gomora roars. Pestar's name is said to be a combination of petroleum, otherwise known as oil, and starfish. Pretty straightforward. I have seen his name written as Pester a few times though too, which is probably just a not as good translation, but it kind of makes sense too, since Pestar definitely does pester people. Or I guess it goes a little beyond that. Just how far beyond does it go? Well, let's find out. Time for the in-universe history. The first of Pestar's crimes was sneakily blowing up a bunch of tanker trucks and oil fields over in the Middle East, after chugging the oil they contained. Following this, the oil beast of course decided to make his way over to Japan next, since that's where all the kaiju go. He eventually arrived in Tokyo Bay without being spotted, except by a man who wasn't exactly thinking straight, who saw weird blue flashes the monster produced as he traversed through the water. Pestar decided to attack a tanker truck driving near the water, right in front of this man, and the vehicle went up in flames. The monster then knocked the truck into the water and sunk back into the bay. The next day, the SSSP conducted a thorough search for the supposed monster, despite understandably not believing the only witness of Pestar's attack to be a credible source. And their diligence was rewarded when they spotted the same blue flashing light traveling through the ocean. Probably would have been better if they'd found it a little sooner, though. A lot better. Pestar covered the ship in flames and then yanked the vessel under the water like he'd done with the truck, and no one could do anything to help, including Hayata, the man who could turn into Ultraman. What are you doing, Hayata? Have you even noticed what is going on? The SSSP realized Pestar's next target would probably be a nearby oil refinery, and they began making plans to defeat Pestar before he could reach it, by studying a sketch of the monster that looked a lot like the monster's concept art, but slightly different. They determined that if they hit the creature in the stomach, it would explode because of all the oil it had eaten, since it was an oil drinker. Oh no, wait, that's a different monster. Anyway, once their plan was prepared, they flew out and had several helicopters drop a bunch of oil in barrels into the water to lure Pestar out. After a very long wait, Pestar emerged as they wanted, and began to eat the barrels. However, the plan quickly backfired after a poorly timed missile shot caused Pestar to become angry and light the oil barrels on fire, and then come ashore to attack the oil refinery. Probably wasn't a great idea to try this plan out so close to the refinery, SSSP. As you can imagine, things got bad very fast, because as I mentioned when I covered this monster, Kaningurjin, oil refineries can never catch a break in toku shows. With his fire breath, Pestar was able to cause even more fires to spring up. Oh, by the way, Pestar is actually the first monster in Ultraman to breathe normal-looking flames. Pretty nice achievement. The SSSP tried to redeem themselves with a second shot at the monster, but at first it seemed to be completely ineffective, and Pestar continued his attack. But then, a few moments later, he suddenly collapsed in a heap. Guess it just took a minute for the creature's body to give out. But Pestar was not dead. The creature still had life. And a little later, when Hayata became Ultraman to help put out all the oil refinery fires, Pestar ambushed him from behind. Oh boy, here we go. Time for the big fight to wrap up the episode. Oh. Yeah, I think I'm sticking with my earlier statement. That was one of the lamest fights in the series. The only other notable thing we could say about this fight is that it was the last time in this 1966 show that Ultraman ever fought an opponent in his A-type appearance, which I like to call Kermit the Frog because of his goofy-looking face.
Kermit the Frog?
So I suppose maybe you could say that Pestar took down Kermit. But otherwise, yeah, very anticlimactic note for this really unique-looking kaiju to go out on. But I guess he's all the more unique because of it. Now, we're going to jump about 29 years forward in time for Pestar's next major appearance, which occurred in the ever-popular Ultraman the Ultimate Hero. Oh no. Well, there's no backing out now, so let's check out Powered Pestar. As you know, if you've seen any of these videos, Ultraman the Ultimate Hero was a reboot of the Ultra series for American audiences that brought back many of the popular monsters from the original Ultraman and provided them with new, more modern-looking designs. Pestar was one of the 16 or so creatures to make it in, and was awarded with a new powered redesign by Mahiro Maeda. Either Maeda further refined the design after drawing this, or costume designer Kevin Hudson or someone else took some liberties, because Powered Pestar's finished suit actually looks quite a bit different from this concept art. On the completed version, Pestar's once bat-like face now looked like the head of a crustacean of some kind, and he had some suction cups on his body. Also, his color was changed from all these colors to pink. At one point, this new version of Pestar was supposed to be called Pestar Beta. Hiroshi Yamaguchi and Bud Robertson were the two who wrote the script that brought this new Pestar back to the small screen, and several of these actors, not sure which two, got to wear the costume. Okay, let's see what in-universe adventures Ultraman the Ultimate Hero has in store for us today. At the beginning of this episode, Pestar, while remaining anonymous, was able to empty out this entire oil structure owned by the Antonio Bay Oil Company, apparently by siphoning it out from underground. This was not the monster's only attack on this company's oil either, and before too long they alerted the Winter team that something starfishy was afoot. Winter was quickly able to identify a suspicious star-shaped heat source that was hanging out in the sea not far from the oil. Several members went out in a sub to try and find out what that thing was. First, they picked up Pestar's roar, and then they found Pestar and got too close and he grabbed the submarine. Luckily, Winter was able to get some data on the creature and learned it was weak to certain frequency sounds, and using this knowledge, they were able to get the monster to release the sub, but they also chased it away and it disappeared in a cloud of black smoke. After analyzing the data and learning that the creature was filled with flammable oil, Winter determined the best course of action was to deal with it underwater, so the sub ventured back into the sea for round number 2. Only problem is, that's not where Pestar was. Now that the secret of it existing was out, the deadly starfish decided to show itself and come ashore for another attack on the Antonio Bay Oil Company's plant. Upon learning this, Winter quickly sped over there as the creature headed slowly toward the main pipeline, and it was decided that they would try to stop the monster by freezing it to absolute zero. Weird, not the first kind of attack I would have thought of to try on a monster surrounded by fire. Oh, by the way, it didn't work. Pestar was encased in ice for a minute, but it just peeled off like plastic. Pestar then began utilizing its fire breath to cause even more devastation, even knocking Winter's captain out of the sky, and continued to slowly amble forward. But suddenly, Ultraman Powered finally arrived to confront the creature. The Ultimate Hero blocked Pestar's fire breath and rushed forward to grab the monster, which didn't really do anything, so he abandoned that plan and rushed out of range of another blast of the creature's fire. But then he ran back and was able to throw the huge monster in the air, in a not very convincing looking way. Powered Pestar floated slowly upward, and Ultraman Powered, after taking a moment to admire his feat of strength, fired his Mega Spacium beam at the monster, and Pestar turned into an explosion. I guess that's the best way to put it. Yep, this fight was basically the quality of other Ultimate Hero brawls we've looked at on this channel, and that's not a good thing. But you know what? When you consider how lame Pestar's battle with Ultraman was back in 1966, this may actually be the one time that Ultraman the Ultimate Hero outshines the original show. Didn't know I'd ever say that. Okay, now it's time for another big jump in time to Pestar's next major appearance, which occurred in Ultraman X Episode 1, which first aired in 2015. And this one was super short. At the beginning of the episode, a Pestar was briefly shown rampaging in the UAE, perhaps to reference his attacks in the Middle East at the beginning of Oil S.O.S. The suit shown for this shot was a Pestar costume used for attractions, probably stage shows. Sadly, the X series didn't do anything else with the monster, other than make him a cyber card. Next up, we have Seven-Ger Fight, an Ultraman Z spin-off designed to be a parody of the old low-budget show Ultra Fight. Pestar teamed up with Gandar from Ultraseven to battle Seven-Ger in Episode 9 of this miniseries. But sadly, I have no access to this episode because it's very hard to watch. It's one of 3 Seven-Ger Fight episodes they didn't upload to Ultraman Connection, and are instead exclusive to a DVD and Blu-ray set of Ultraman Z that I don't have. So I guess if any of you students have seen the episode, let us know in the comments what happens. Based on a description I saw, I think Gandar may actually end up finishing Pestar off with his freezing rays in this episode. Finally, to wrap up the major appearances, we have Ultra Galaxy Fight, The Destined Crossroad, in which Pestar got to fight an Ultraman again. Well, at least an Ultraman got to fight him, or more like toy with him. Ultraman Fuma battled this Pestar on a faraway planet and just sped around him, beating him up, before slicing him in two with a light wave shuriken before we could even really get much of a good look at him. The fight literally lasted about 25 seconds, and that's including the part where it stopped to show Ultraman Fuma's name. Pestar doesn't seem to last long in battles, does he? Well, unless it's a comic, I guess. Moving on to minor appearances for Pestar, this story in the magazine Billiken features a long, drawn-out battle between Ultraman and Pestar. I'd love to see this fight adapted in Tokusatsu. Aside from this, here are some other minor appearances for the monster. He is apparently the third boss in the game Mega Monster Rush Ultra Frontier, and appeared in a brand new, powerful-looking, mostly blue form. He can be seen floating in the monster graveyard in episode 21 of Ultraman Mebius. A toy of Powered Pestar cameos in SSSS Gridman, and he fought Ultraman Orb in the second chapter of Ultraman Orb Chronicle. Also, he is actually both an opponent and a playable character in the game just called Ultraman for the PS2. And that's just mentioning a few. Here are all the other Pestar cameos and minor appearances I am aware of. See, as you can see, he definitely has a presence in lesser-known Ultra media. Just hasn't had a really big performance since the Ultimate Hero. It'd be nice if that were to change soon. Also, Pestar's very unique appearance has inspired the designs of several other Ultra Kaiju, with Antimatter from Ultraman Gaia always being the one that comes to mind for me. But there's also Minjura from Ultraman Tiga, and this Pestar robot called Pestria, who first appeared in a 1982 issue of the Televi-kun magazine, and was brought back for a Tri-Squad voice drama from 2019. Hasn't appeared in live action yet, though. Alright, next up, let's discuss Pestar toys. Believe it or not, just days before you students voted for me to create this class, I just so happened to get my hands on an Ultra Monster series Pestar figure that I added to my personal collection. This guy with a mold from the year 2000 is a really rare and pretty well sculpted figure, though his scale, compared to the others in the line, kind of bugs me slightly. He's kind of small. But hey, I am quickly running out of space for my ever-growing Toku archive, so having a monster that fit right in without me having to make space was much appreciated. Currently, he's standing right here, with a Gankyu peeking over him. I've also run across an Ultra Monster Series 1994 powered Pestar one or two times in the past as well. If I remember correctly, it is quite a bit larger than the standard Pestar. There is still no Spark Doll-sized Pestar, though. I'm sure I'd end up picking one of those up if Bandai ever released one. Hear that, Bandai? That's at least one sale for you if you put out a Pestar on the 500 scale. You like money, right? The Ultra Monster series is the main Ultraman line I collect, but if you are into Gashapon toys, Bullmark, finger puppets, or even cards, there's Pestar stuff in those categories as well for you. There are even more fun Pestar collectibles besides these as well. Just run an eBay search, you'll find a lot of interesting stuff. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out my eBay store as well. I just checked and I currently have over 700 Ultraman products available, and more on the way. Proceeds help me pay for my needs and produce more videos for you all. There's a link to my store in the description. Kids, would you mind explaining to me what exactly you're doing?
Your class inspired us, Professor! Pestar's unique two-suit actor design gave us the brilliant idea to combine our creativity and create the ultimate kaiju. Meet Pest Killer!
Sounds like a bug spray. Now, did you kids listen to the entire class? Don't forget, I did say that the two guys who wore the Pestar suit did not have much fun.
Could you say that again, Professor? Sound is kind of muffled in here.
Whoa, don't move so fast,
Kishimu-Kun, careful! Whoa!
Ow!
I warned you kids about this. Better drop the disguise now.
Aha!
What?
There you are, poor Billy Cuddles! Should have known he'd kidnap you!
Why are you here, Mr. Principal?
You ought to know! You stole dear little Billy Cuddles!
Who?
My blanket. My blue blanket that I use in my office. You stole him! Oh, and look at this! You covered him in tape and bananas! Why, I oughta...
No, I didn't take it. The
Huh? Billy's moving? Billy became a horrifying monster!
You know what? You're right, Professor. We shouldn't have tried this.
Oh no, kids. Actually, Pest Killer is amazing. He's such a wonderful kaiju. You've got to keep this act up.
Wait, really?
Oh yes. I'm proud of you, kids. Come on, I'll help you train in the art of suit acting.
Huh?
Well, okay.
Wait for us, Professor!